Imagine yourself standing in the middle of an ancient arena. The crowd roars, dust fills the air, and before you stands an enemy, not wielding a sword but a fake smile, cold eyes, and an ego so inflated it threatens to consume everything around it. They provoke you, mock you, demand a reaction. But what do? You stand still. You stay silent. You turn your back and walk away. And then something miraculous happens. They panic, not because of your shouts or a drawn blade, but because of your unshakable stillness, a force they can never comprehend. Why does silence have the power to make a narcissist, someone who thrives on the spotlight, tremble? Why does your refusal to dance to their tune become their worst nightmare? The answer lies in an ancient philosophy, as solid as stone and as unyielding as a mountain in a storm. Stoicism. It is not just a steel shield that helps you withstand the arrogance of the narcissist's bloated ego. It is a lighthouse, illuminating your path and burning through the chaos they create. With silent power, Stoicism hands you the key to mastering your own life, turning every breath into an unshakable declaration, every moment into a silent victory against their manipulation. Today, we are diving deep into silent power, the strength of self-mastery. It is not just the blade that severs the narcissist's lifeline, it is also the shield that guards your soul from their chaos. Get ready, because this will be a profound journey, one where you will not only learn how to make your enemies collapse under their own weight, but also discover true freedom. Imagine standing before a monster, not the kind with fangs or claws, but a creature that feeds on your gaze, your voice, even your anger. This is the narcissist. They do not breathe air, nor do they exist through flesh and blood, but through a strange fuel, attention. Their ego is a grand castle built on fine sand, magnificent, proud, yet all it takes is a single breeze of indifference from you, and it crumbles like a cruel joke of fate. They are not a real enemy, but an illusion, a phantom that only lives when you look at it. This is where Stoicism enters, like a flame exposing the truth. Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher-emperor who faced wars and betrayal, once wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." Think about that. A narcissist may rage like a storm, flaunt like a peacock in full display, or even stab you with the daggers of their words, but they cannot touch you, cannot shake you, unless you open the doors of your mind and invite them in. They are the storm, you are the sky, vast, unshaken, forever beyond the reach of their raging waves. Now, recall someone you've encountered, perhaps a colleague who boasts in every meeting, a relative who parades their success as if the world should bow before them, or someone who once stood before you with a fake smile and eyes demanding recognition. What did you do? Maybe you tried to argue to prove them wrong, or even lashed out in frustration to defend yourself. But what happened next? They didn't stop. They didn't crumble. If anything, they thrived. Because, unknowingly, you had just thrown them a log to fuel the fire of their ego. Psychology calls this narcissistic supply, the addictive substance they need to survive, like a starving man devouring a feast of attention. But this is where Stoic philosophy flips the script. Seneca, a philosopher who lived amidst conspiracies and poison-laced politics, once wrote, "Who depends on others for his sense of self has already lost himself." Now, picture that. The narcissist does not truly exist. They are an empty shell, a beautiful mask, but inside, nothing but the hollow echoes of their own void. They need you to fill that void. They need you to look, to react, to play your role in the script they've written for themselves. But what if you step away from the audience? What if you refuse to applaud? What happens then? They are left standing there, alone, on an empty stage, under a spotlight shining on to nothingness. This is not just a weakness, it is their fatal flaw. They are not as powerful as they pretend to be. They are not as invincible as they want you to believe. They are mere puppets, dangling on invisible strings, and you, only you, hold the scissors. One cut, one step back, and all their grandiosity vanishes like smoke in the wind. This is the doorway to silent power, the strength that requires no words, no action, only the unwavering stillness of your presence. What is silent power? Forget any notions of weakness or surrender. This is not about curling up in a corner and enduring. This is the ultimate power, the invisible blade that pierces the narcissist's heart without you ever drawing it from its sheath. Epictetus, a former slave turned great philosopher, once said, "No one can harm you unless you allow it." Those words are a beacon in the darkness, a reminder that a narcissist only holds power when you give it to them. When you choose silence, when you refuse to step into their whirlwind, you do more than cut off their lifeline. You declare that your soul is an impenetrable fortress. Picture a narcissist as a wildfire, fierce, dazzling, and ready to consume everything in its path. But what does fire need to burn? Oxygen, and their oxygen is you, your attention, your emotions, the energy you expend trying to reason with them. The more you argue, the angrier you get. The more you explain, the more fuel you throw into their fire, making it roar higher, brighter, swallowing you in its fury. But what happens when you take the oxygen away, when you turn your back, when you go silent, when you refuse to give them even the faintest flicker of your gaze? The fire sputters, flickers, and dies, not because you extinguished it, but because it has nothing left to burn. This is the difference between a typical reaction and Stoic-style silent power. A typical reaction is to charge into the arena, sword raised, fighting to prove yourself right. But Stoicism does not teach you to fight, it teaches you to stand firm. You don't need to take them down with sharp words or clenched fists. You don't need to shout to affirm your worth. Your silence is your most devastating strike. A blow that requires no movement, yet brings your enemy to their knees in their own despair. Imagine this scene. A narcissist stands before you, hurling provocations, shooting arrows of venomous words. "Do you think you're better than me?" they scream, eyes gleaming with triumph. Normally you would respond. You would try to defend your honor, prove them wrong, drag them down to your level. But with silent power, what do? You smile gently, not a smirk of mockery, but a smile of serenity. You say nothing, you turn away, and what do? They panic, they yell louder, flail their arms, desperately try to pull you back in, but you have already left the battlefield. They want you to dance to their music, you stand still, and that alone makes them fall apart. Silent power is not lifeless indifference, it is the unwavering presence of a mountain in the storm. It is the silent declaration that you do not need their validation, that you do not need to win against them, because the true victory has always been in your hands, control over yourself. When you master that, the narcissist is no longer a threat, they are nothing more than a fading ghost, dissolving in the light of the freedom you have chosen. Now, take hold of silent power and turn it into your weapon, not for attack, but for protection and liberation. This is not just a theoretical concept for you to nod at and forget. This is a battle plan, a map guiding you through the narcissist's swamp so you can stand firm on the peak of self-mastery. I'm going to show you 3 specific steps forged from Stoic wisdom that you can apply today. Steps that will make any narcissist in your life tremble at your unshakable presence. Step 1. Accept what cannot be changed. Pause for a moment and face the cold, razor-sharp truth. A narcissist will never change. Not today, not tomorrow, not ever. They are puppets controlled by their own diseased ego, forever trapped in a cycle of arrogance and attention-seeking. They will always try to pull you into their stage, a never-ending drama where they play the lead role, armed with empty boasts, sharpened insults, and performances designed to suck you into their chaos. Do you see it now? They don't care about the truth. They don't care about you. They only need you as an audience, as fuel to keep their raging ego aflame. Ask yourself, have you ever tried to fix them? Have you ever stepped into the arena, naively believing that a few sharp words of truth would pierce through their arrogant shell and awaken them? Have you argued until your voice was hoarse, trying to prove them wrong? Have you patiently explained yourself, hoping they would finally reflect on their behavior? Have you silently wished that one day they would change? And what did you get in return? Exhaustion, frustration, a mind weighed down by endless battles. Meanwhile, they stood there, smirking, eyes gleaming, not because they were right, but because you gave them exactly what they craved. Your reaction, your energy, your very life force poured into their performance. You didn't fix them, you fed them. Seneca, the Stoic philosopher who lived among some of the most treacherous figures of ancient Rome, people willing to stab others in the back for a moment of power, left us with a sharp warning. Arguing with a fool only makes you miserable. Let that sink in. Every time you engage, every time you step into a battle of words with them, you're not just wasting your breath, you're chaining yourself to their twisted game, making yourself a prisoner of their carefully laid trap. So let go. Stop playing. When they throw a vicious insult at you, you're nothing. When they boast with smug arrogance, I've done things you could only dream of. Don't charge into battle like a provoked gladiator. Stand still. Shrug as if it's nothing but a passing breeze. Take a deep breath. Let the air fill your lungs like an antidote, cleansing you of any temptation to respond. And then, in your mind, whisper, "This is not my concern." They want you to step onto their chessboard where every piece is set to ensure your defeat. Don't take the bait. Turn away, leaving them standing there with an empty board, forced to play their twisted game alone in a loneliness they will never admit. Stoicism teaches that you cannot change others, you can only change how you respond to them. This acceptance is not weakness, it is the strength of a true warrior, one who knows that victory is not about defeating the enemy, but standing firm in the storm without being moved. A narcissist wants you to be part of their show? Step off the stage and let them perform alone. Watch as they collapse, undone by the silence where applause should have been. Step 2. Maintain an inner mind. This is the moment you turn your mind into an impregnable fortress, not to cower like a coward, but to stand firm like a steel warrior against the raging storm of the narcissist. Picture this. They rush toward you, eyes blazing with smugness, their voice thundering like a storm, hurling words as sharp as daggers forged in the furnace of arrogance. "You're nothing," they scream, their sneering grin attempting to tear apart your self-worth. "I'm 100 times, 1,000 times better than you," they growl, each word a stone aimed straight at your heart. In that instant, your instincts will scream inside you, fight back, get angry, prove them wrong. But stop. Do not let the fire of anger ignite. Do not let the shadows of sorrow pull you into the abyss. This is the moment you raise an invisible wall, not to hide, but to declare that nothing can penetrate you. Stoicism steps in like a commanding general, giving you a clear order. You cannot control what they say. You cannot silence them or shrink their inflated ego, but you hold the ultimate power, the power to control how you respond. Take a deep breath, not just an ordinary breath, but one that sweeps through you like a cool breeze over scorched earth, extinguishing the sparks of emotion waiting to explode. Let the air fill your lungs slowly, deliberately, like a pure stream washing away the temptation to retaliate. And then, in the stillness of your mind, repeat like an unshakable mantra, "This does not touch me." Their words, no matter how venomous, no matter how arrogant, are nothing more than waves crashing against the rocks of your being, dissolving into insignificance against the solidity of your soul. Imagine yourself as a towering mountain in the midst of the wilderness. Lofty, proud, immovable. They may throw stones at you, stones in the form of insults and boastful claims, but those stones simply roll down the slopes, shattering into dust at your feet, leaving no mark upon you. They may scream, their voices echoing like thunder, but their sound is nothing more than the wind rushing through the valleys, loud, yet powerless against your steadfast presence. They want you to tremble. They want you to collapse. They want you to bow, but you are not dust to be swept away by the wind. You are bedrock, a symbol of unwavering strength that nothing can shake. I once heard a story that I could never forget. A man was relentlessly attacked by a narcissistic colleague during a tense meeting. The aggressor stood up, pointed a finger at him, and with self-satisfied arrogance spat out, "You'll never be like me, you're just a failure." All eyes turned toward the man, the atmosphere thick with tension, suffocating in its weight. But what did he do? Nothing. He sat there, his eyes calmly gazing into the distance as if watching an endless horizon, his hand still steadily taking notes as if nothing had happened. The narcissist grew louder, his voice cracking. "Are you afraid to face me? Coward!" Yet the man remained silent, his breath even, not a single furrow in his brow, not a single flicker in his gaze. Eventually the narcissist ran out of words and, embarrassed, sat down, because no one continued applauding his performance. The room fell silent, but it was not the silence of defeat. It was the silence of victory, the silence of a soul that could not be moved. That is the power of tranquility. Not cold indifference, but absolute self-mastery. When you keep your mind unshaken, you do not merely shield yourself from the arrows of the narcissist, you become a fortress they can never breach. They want you to crumble, stand firm. They want you to react, smile in silence. And in that tranquility you will see them begin to waver, not because you fought back, but because you refuse to let them touch you. Step 3. Act for yourself. Do not let a single drop of your precious energy fall into the hands of a narcissist. Gather it, forge it into a blazing fire, and use it to sculpt your life into a masterpiece. They want you to revolve around them like a captive satellite, forever bound to the orbit they have drawn, forever serving their inflated ego. But you are not some dim star in their sky. You are a radiant galaxy, with your own path and your own light. So break free from those chains, abandon their orbit and soar in the direction of your choosing, not to please them, but to honor yourself. Picture this. A manipulative message appears on your phone screen, its words sweet yet toxic, like candy laced with poison. You're not replying because you know I'm right, aren't you? Ordinarily, you would rush to respond, fingers trembling as you type, desperate to prove them wrong, to pull them down to your level. But this time you do something different. You put the phone down. You stand up, you lace up your running shoes and step outside. Each footstep, pounding against the earth, becomes a drumbeat of victory. Sweat trickles down your forehead, washing away the distractions they tried to plant in your mind. The wind brushes against your face, cool, liberating, a whisper that reminds you, you don't need them, you only need yourself. Or imagine they stand before you spouting arrogant boasts. I just accomplished something you could never even dream of. They wait, waiting for you to argue, to push back, to dive into the pointless battle they have carefully laid out for you. But you don't take the bait. Instead of speaking, you sit down, open your laptop, and begin learning a new skill, maybe coding, painting, or anything that ignites your soul. Every minute spent on that skill becomes a step that lifts you higher, further out of their reach. Knowledge floods your mind like a river washing away the dirt they tried to leave behind. And you smile, not at them, but at yourself, because you are building a stronger, more radiant version of who you are. Think about this deeply. Every second you give to a narcissist, whether through arguments, sadness, or trying to understand them, is a second you steal from yourself. It is a precious gem thrown into the abyss of waste, a fragment of your soul trampled under their feet. But every second you invest in yourself, strengthening your body, feeding your mind, pursuing your passions, is a solid brick laid down in the fortress of your life. And that fortress is not just a shelter, it is a symbol of freedom, of power, of a person who shines brilliantly without needing anyone's approval. A narcissist wants you to be their audience, sitting in the front row, endlessly applauding the self-scripted drama they perform. Decline the invitation. Step out of the theater. Pick up the pen of destiny and become the director of your own life. A grand masterpiece where you are the lead character, the spotlight shines on you, and the narcissist fades into an insignificant shadow, lost in the background. They want you to depend on them for your sense of existence. Prove that you don't need them at all. You are a fire that burns on its own. You are a sky that expands without limits. And in your world they have no place. They approach, their voice dripping with condescension. Do you really think you're better than me? You can't accomplish anything worthwhile. Ordinarily, you might snap back. You're the real failure. And just like that, you would fall into their trap. But with silent power, what do? You look at them. You smile. Not mockingly, but in a way that shows you are unmoved. You say nothing. You turn back to your work. They press on. What's wrong? Are you scared to face me? Coward! But you remain silent, fingers tapping the keyboard, breathing steady. They panic. They yell louder. They wave their arms. But you do not react. Eventually, they storm away, their face flushed with frustration, because no one continued their performance. You didn't have to defeat them. You only had to stand firm. And they collapsed under their own weight. Silent power is not just a technique. It is a mindset. It is the art of training your mind to become unshakable, turning every arrow they fire at you into dry twigs that fall harmlessly at your feet. You do not need to fight to win. You only need to refuse to play their game, and victory is already yours. And then what happens when you use silent power? Imagine a breathtaking scene. The narcissist, whose ego once stood as proud as a volcano, begins to crack and collapse, not because you pushed them down, but because you are no longer the foundation holding them up. They do not just lose their audience. They lose their script, their stage, and their very reason for existence. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "They do wrong because they do not know what is right." You do not need to retaliate, to clench your fists, or to shout for justice. Your silence alone is enough for them to dig their own grave. Picture them as a puppet, with invisible strings connecting them to you. Every time you react, you pull a string, and they dance. The dance of arrogance, of manipulation, of control. But when you let go, when you cut every thread with your silence, what do? They panic, they flail, they desperately try to pull you back. "Why aren't you answering?" they scream. "Who do you think you are to ignore me?" But you remain unmoved. You stand there, as unshakable as a stone statue, and they begin to waver. They shout louder, they provoke harder, they even pretend to be the victim, but without an audience, without applause. They are nothing more than a lost ghost trapped in their own performance. I once heard a story from a friend, a true story, though the names have been kept anonymous. She lived with a narcissist who constantly demanded attention. Every day he boasted about his accomplishments, lashed out when she didn't react, and dragged her into pointless arguments. One day she decided to try silent power. When he yelled, "You never appreciate me," she didn't respond. She simply made herself a cup of tea and sat down with a book. He grew furious, calling her non-stop, sending manipulative messages, but she remained silent. Day after day, her indifference became an invisible blade. In the end, he withdrew, not because she won through words, but because she gave him no opportunity to continue his act. He collapsed under his own weight, and she reclaimed her freedom. This is the magic of silent power. You do not have to do anything. You do not need revenge. You do not need validation. You do not need to lower yourself to their level. Your unshaken presence is a mirror reflecting their emptiness, and when they look into it, they cannot bear the sight. They will scream, they will thrash, but in the end they will fall into the abyss they dug for themselves. You do not push them, you simply stand still, and natural order takes care of the rest. Silent power does not just protect you from the narcissist, it liberates you from every chain they ever tried to bind you with. It is a declaration that you do not need their approval, you do not need to win against them, because true victory is standing firm in the storm and smiling, not because you have defeated them, but because you never needed to. They destroy themselves, and you walk free. Before we close this journey, I want to invite you to join me, not just as a viewer but as part of a community of people living by the principles of silent power and stoicism. Subscribe to the channel now so you don't miss the profound journeys ahead, and join our community group through the link in the video description. There you can share your stories, learn from others, and together build an unshakable fortress in the midst of this chaotic world. Don't just watch, act, live, and let your silent strength echo with us. We have come a long way. Silent power is not just a method for dealing with narcissists. It is the path to living in alignment with your true self. Epictetus once said, "Freedom is the state of the soul being unchained." When you choose silence in the face of nonsense, when you focus on what you can control, you do not just defeat your enemies, you find a peace that no one can take from you. Challenge yourself today. For the next 7 days, live like a stoic. Ignore those who try to drag you down. Keep your mind unshaken. Channel your energy into building something meaningful, and then come back here and tell me what happened. I bet you will see the narcissist in your life start to tremble, not because of what you do. Next time we will go even deeper, how to turn adversity into strength, following the wisdom of the great philosophers. But for now, stand up, move forward, and let your silence become your loudest voice. You do not need a battlefield to win, you only need yourself.